Everyone has a story, moments that shaped them, struggles that tested them, triumphs that define them. But most of these stories stay hidden, shadows in the background of everyday life until now. Welcome to True Incredible Stories. These aren't just stories, these are lived experiences brought into light. Subscribe, like, and share because these voices deserve to be heard and you won't want to miss a single one.
The big part of it started in 2020, but the history, this is kind of a health journey. And the history was having issues with weight all my life. And like most people, you diet, you lose weight, you gain it back with a bonus. Eventually you diet again, you lose weight. So it continues. And this went on. The last time I had lost significant amount of weight, I was 40. So that's 20 years ago now. And as in every other time, I couldn't maintain it. And very slowly over the next 15 years, it came on. And it got as high for me of a weight of 260 pounds. And discouraged with myself and other things, I did not keep up with my annual physicals. I was going in as needed, but not getting the blood work done. So it got to be, it was in January of 2020. I wasn't feeling well. I was noticing some mornings I'd wake up and my arms were just extremely tingly. So I would be in the shower trying to massage my hands to get blood flowing because they were both just tingling, like they'd fallen asleep. And I didn't know what it was, but it was something new. And I guess I kind of thought aging. Well, so that one was going on for a while. And then one night I went to go to bed and I noticed that my heart was racing, like really racing. I thought, well, that's odd, and I can't sleep like this. So I got up and sat up for a while and eventually laid back down, and it was just racing like crazy. And so I went to work that morning and I just sat there knowing something was seriously wrong. I couldn't figure it out. And so I didn't say anything to my coworkers. I came home on lunch. I packed a bag, shut everything off, and I walked into my doctor's office. And I said, my heart is racing. I don't know what's wrong. Something's wrong, though. I got seen right away, and I met the doctor for the first time. Ended up sending me for blood work, and I went in, and a few days later, I got a call that my blood sugar was kind of high. They waited another, I think, 2 weeks and sent me for more blood work. And then, in fact, they tried to run a test in the office, but for an A1C. And I was so high, their machine wouldn't read it. So they sent me to the local hospital and I had the blood draw there again. And I got a call to come in on a day the doctor's not usually there. And he came in to see me and told me that I had type 2 diabetes. And he did something very unusual for most doctors. He told me how to eat in a way that would help put it in remission. And my A1C, for those that are familiar with it, was 12.5, which is very, very high. I mean, I've heard a few worse, but most are diagnosed before that point. And so I was in the double digits. I had just jumped over all those earlier ones, and it was bad. And I realized at that point there were other symptoms. And most doctors at that point would have put their patient on insulin. My doctor did kind of threaten it or tell me it could be necessary, but he was going to give me a chance first. And he said, get your carbs down to under 30 grams a day. And he gave me the name of a book showed a photocopy of a front cover of a book about keto to help me learn. And then he put me on a low dose of metformin. So that was the only prescription I was on. And so I left. I knew what diabetes did. I have a grandmother that had it that I watched, when I was young, and she was also morbidly obese and lost both of her legs. And I knew what the disease did, and I was respectfully scared. I also had friends that were eating keto for different reasons. So I had people to turn to. I had a little bit of community immediately and guidance. And that was nice. That was crucial. Mm-hmm. And so I went home and I cleaned the cupboards and did some shopping. And I changed my eating on a dime. I'm not going to say I did it perfectly because there were things I didn't know right away, but I got those carbs down. And I was told by my doctor to take my blood sugar just every morning as soon as I got up. And he gave me a glucometer. And so I did that. And I started around 300s, below 300s milligrams per deciliter for morning fasting readings. Mm-hmm. I only took a reading once a day, which is nice in a lot of ways, especially when you're early on. Your body is so sick, it's not going to act normal. You can get yourself all worked up. And so instead, I just one reading a day. And within 2 weeks, I was down to 130 as a fasting number. Okay. And I'd heard that was the upper end of okay. And that was significant because some brochure from the American Diabetes Association said that was a good upper number for fasting for a diabetic. I believe that's too high from what I've learned since, but that was what I knew then. So, and from there it took, I added in intermittent fasting, starting to eat at noon and ending by 8 o'clock at night. And that helped. And I saw my doctor, numbers were coming down along the way, and that was great. And so we kept on path. And by the time my 3-month checkup came along, the COVID lockdown was going on. So I had to stick my finger out the car door while somebody, came and poked my finger to check the A1C. And at 90 days, it was 5.5. I was in the normal zone again in just 3 months. Wow. And on that low dose metformin. Mm-hmm. So by then I'd done a lot of reading about fasting. And again, I was, still over 200 pounds at this point, or real close to it. And I wanted to try extended fasting. And I knew the metformin would interfere with my liver and gluconeogenesis, the making of glucose as needed. So I wanted to get that out of my system before I fasted. My doctor totally agreed with me that I could come off, and he knew the plan. And so I did that. And at my 6-month checkup, I was now, I want to say about 170 pounds by then. Weight was coming off quickly, and my A1C was 4.4. Wow. I was well in a normal range. And so that was July, and my medical chart was marked that the type 2 diabetes was at that point resolved. Wow. I was 3 months of no medications, and I have held it in that status for 5 years.
Wow.
And I got my weight down as low as 130. I'm now sitting about 145 to 150. It came up a little bit. But I got my life back. At 260 pounds, you're limited. You're limited what you can do. Walking half a mile was about it. I had plantar fascia. Mm-hmm. And in fact, at that first appointment, he set me up with a podiatrist. I can't say any of the stretching did me any good. I think it was getting rid of the glycation and getting the weight down that healed it. It is no longer an issue. I can walk for miles and miles now, and that's not a problem. So that went away. I got my energy. I had relatives, again, this all happened in 2020 when we didn't get to see people much, and I had relatives that didn't realize it was me when they saw me next.
Wow.
Because I was just not that person anymore. I looked so different. Even in this last earlier this year, I lost a cousin to primarily the horrible consequences of type 2.
Mm.
And at the funeral, relatives saw me and they thought I was my older sister who's always been thin, and I was mistaken for her by quite a few people. So because my looks changed that much, it was an amazing transformation. I encourage people now through Facebook groups and other communities on how to do it, and where to find answers and things to go look into, and different paths worth trying. Huge advocate of very low carb. Mm-hmm. It worked for me, and because I found as part of my path that I was very addicted to especially highly processed carbs. And obviously sugar's a big one. And so I've had to look at that relationship with food. And so for me, getting the carbs out is really helpful. So sometimes people go chasing those keto treats if they're trying this path. And it works for some. And for those, fantastic. For me, it kept cravings alive. When I would get stressed at work, I would end up going to the grocery store and I would get some keto ice cream, sugar-free Russell Stover candies. And I absolutely knew while I was standing in line at the register that I was holding on to my fix, my substance, that it was all an emotional thing. And eventually I just said, this is insane. And I stopped doing it. And I don't do that. But so I let people know, try it. You don't know. It may work for you. Some people may be in a less severe state of, bad metabolic health. Maybe they don't have to go so drastic, that maybe 50 to 100 grams of carbs, and they can heal that way and maintain it. That's fantastic. While I did start out with some of those keto products early on and learned the issues and quit with them and went to Whole Foods, I was still eating classic keto. And then over time, I ended up kind of morphing over to carnivore. Mm-hmm. Just because I felt the best on it. It's easy. I don't feel like I'm missing anything. I'm not saying that once in a blue moon I don't have a salad, or if I'm out to eat, something unusual is happening, but my day-to-day is a lot of eggs and beef and bacon and chicken wings or whatever, and butter, and I'm not high on dairy because I already know that my body loves to gain weight, so I avoid that mostly, but now and then, fine. It's not a big fat no, just a kind of a cautionary. So I do get asked sometimes in Facebook groups, especially, how did you do it? What does a day of eating look like for you? And I kind of hem and haw a little bit as to how I eat now, because it is just where I went to, and it may not appeal to everyone, and not everyone has to go to carnivore. I mean, I did my healing on keto. And so that really works. I also follow a number of different influencers online, and I learned different things from each one of them. From Dr. Berry, a lot of people love Dr. Ken Berry. He's got a lot of good things to say. Dr. Boz, she comes out with a lot of truths that speak home to me. Dr. Sivas was big for me. He kind of emphasizes the carb addiction, and you've got to have other ways of managing emotions. You can't just take your addictive substance away and not replace it with something healthier. Mm-hmm. So for me, that's getting out and walking, that's listening to music. That's going out and taking photos,
Mhm.
sitting in my chair for hours later, editing photos. It's all great relaxation to me. And I really enjoy that. So that helps me. Um, so that's
Mhm.
and so yeah, I found that of huge value.
So, what would you say to someone struggling with these issues?
Just get those carbs down. You're going to find conflicting information. Let your body give the feedback. I would say testing once a day early on is enough. As soon as you wake up, don't go make the coffee, don't go to do five other things. Get that number and watch that for a while because your body's not going to act normal. You're going to spike weird from different things, and it can cause a lot more panic and concern than it's worth. And if you just counting, if all you do is just keep those carbs really low, things are going to start coming down. Well, all grains went. Grains were gone. Potatoes were gone. Some of the nuts and seeds were gone. Some root vegetables like potatoes, of course, carrots, beets. I didn't eat beets, but so that was fine. Some of those things were just off the menu. I had to be a bit careful with tomatoes because they are fruit. Generally, berries, but in limited amounts, work okay. And that was enough for me. That worked. I actually found there was a keto version of a recipe for about anything you wanted to make
Mhm.
out there. And so I dabbled with a lot of those
Oh,
things.
you can
So
start.
I did a lot of recipes, yeah. And I enjoyed that time period. It was messy. My kitchen was a mess during that. I like the simplicity of now, but they were out there and they made the transition so much easier and enjoyable. And once you're eating food that satisfies you and tastes good and you're not running around hungry, it's easy and enjoyable. And get those carbs down. First, eat 3 meals a day, don't snack. If you really have to, have a hard boiled egg if you're hungry, something simple.
What about holidays, family get-togethers? Is that ever a struggle?
I don't change what I do. I kind of ask a little bit ahead of time what's going to be served. If I need to bring something that's more for me, then that's what I do. I do not step off my, you know, cheating to me is going from carnivore to keto. I don't change it. I absolutely will not. I don't want to trigger myself. It is simply not worth it. And so I accept that I eat different, but I figure just like somebody who has a nut allergy, they don't eat that. I don't eat the carbs. And anyone that's around me knows that. And they're not offended. I'm not gonna taste the cheesecake. Thanks anyway, but and I got caught off guard one time at a family gathering because I actually was dealing with the emotions that I hadn't had before of left out.
Mhm.
And so now when it came to desserts, so now I take my own emotional temperature, and if I think I need it, I bring something for me, and that's enough. It does the job.
Sounds great. Well, Sue, that was an amazing story. Thank you so much for sharing. I really appreciate
Certainly.
it.